I think that was a great food at lunch. We'll have the same tomorrow and after tomorrow, just as a prospect. And now, please, Bernard, take on what I just skipped before lunch. Please.
Okay, thank you. Bonjour, je m'appelle Bernard. Je suis autrichien, and that's about it with my French. I'm very sorry. I've learned it in school, actually, but that's such a long time ago that it has all gone. So please excuse me if I have to speak English here. I'm a heavy Semantic MediaWiki user. I think I started in 2006 or so. So for quite a long time. And since then, Richard has already mentioned this. I think there are not many problems with Semantic MediaWiki. From a technical point, there are no real problems. From a user experience point, I don't think that there are big problems. The only big problems it has is that nobody knows it, I would say, and this after those years. So and this makes it interesting. We've heard a lot of things about there's MW stake and there is of course MediaWiki as the core product, and so this makes it not easy. There is no foundation for Semantic MediaWiki. Doesn't make it easy, but what it shows us is that every one of us can join in making it more prominent and more visible and better known. So I want to invite you actually to look at our social media channels that we have established during the years. Most of you know in Twitter, it was actually my goal to reach 1,300 for this conference, but I failed. I think we're on our 1,291 or so. So there's still, I think, room for improvement. So we have a Twitter channel that you know. We are also on Facebook. We have 751 likes there. So I think there is room for improvement still. We are on LinkedIn. I don't know if all of you know that. There is a LinkedIn group. So whoever is in LinkedIn, please join this group. There are 446 members. So there are some social media activities on there. I don't know if you know this. There is a YouTube channel. I don't know who operates it, actually. I'm not the one, but we will find out, or maybe Carsten will know for sure. Who has access to this, but it is there, and there are some videos there. So this would be also an idea. You don't have to help us out with operating this channel, but you could also maybe create content for it, because some kind of introductory video for some feature or for an extension that you developed, you could do yourself. So I want to maybe during the next 2 days or also on Friday start more discussions with you about what everybody can do and what we should do to improve the situation. We have also other channels. Of course, we are on GitHub. So if you are a developer and you are on GitHub, please like our repository. The mailing lists are on SourceForge. I think this is something that is an old thing. We're not on SourceForge, but the mailing lists are there. But what you can do without joining any social media activities from the official side is you can use the hashtag. You have seen it, Semantic MW, not SMW, because the SMW hashtag on Twitter is used for various things. So it's not usable. For the conferences, please use the hashtag SMWCon and not the year, because there are not so many SMWCons that it's okay if we just have this one. And interact with our accounts. Like our accounts, share it, mention us, invite friends. You can do that on Facebook. You invite friends to like a page. And create content, as I mentioned. Some of you might be good graphics people, do some kind of cool graphics for us. We will happily use it and reuse it for social media needs. The question is, do we need, or does anybody of you want to join a social media team. I don't think a social media team exists yet. I would say there are some people who have access to those accounts. And in Twitter, I started, I think, like half a year ago to ask Carsten if I can join in. And now, so the last tweets are 90% from me. So if you see that SMW account does odd tweets, you have to talk to me about it. So it's not necessary that we have a big team of tweeters, but we're not on Instagram, for example. I don't want to go on Instagram, to be honest, but maybe some of you is very proficient in Instagram. Maybe you want to start a Semantic MediaWiki page on Instagram. Maybe we should talk also about something that has never happened before MW Stake was there, but maybe you have more ideas here. There are these funding portals like Bounty Source, OpenCollective.com, LiberaPay.com, who try to collect funds for development. We are not there. We could be there. Maybe we should be there. Let's discuss this in the next days. So yeah, if you want to help out, manage our accounts, please talk to us. We are quite open to this idea. Or if you have new ideas for social media activities also, please contact us. Also, I'd like to discuss, but maybe not in this big group, but in a smaller group, because not everybody is interested. There are some details, you know. How should I act as an official Semantic MediaWiki Twitter account? Do I do tweets in German? Probably not, because tweets should be in English. But can I interact with tweets in German? Because I know German. Do we make public Twitter lists? These are some lists that I did. I made them private, so only the users of this account can see them, because it's for organizing myself. And some Twitter users say, I don't like to be on any list. Please don't list me. So the only official one or open one is the Semantic SMWCon 2019 list. You can find it on Twitter on our account, where I mention accounts that are in this room, I guess. So this is also one question. Do we like or share commercial posts? If, for example, Hallo Welt does something quite extraordinary, do I, as Semantic MediaWiki, retweet that or like that or share that? I would say yes, but there are different opinions because Richard has mentioned it. I think our competitors are more Confluence and maybe even Microsoft, but it's not Hallo Welt against Gezin IT or against Wikibase Netherlands. It is really a common, it should be a common goal that we have to make our great platform better. So, but there are different views on that. How can we fund ads, for example? You can, Twitter or Facebook posts, usually you have to invest some money to get them more prominent. Well, who is going to invest this money? It doesn't have to be centralized, but if you have your company ad on Facebook, you could easily pay for an ad for Semantic MediaWiki, for example, for the Facebook account. So these are things that we could discuss during the next days. But I'm open also, of course, now to your suggestions, but as this is a maybe specialized topic, we could talk about this in smaller groups, but this was the first presentation just to give you a short overview and to invite you in the discussion. And maybe now you have some questions or comments, or we can talk about this during the conference. Any comments now? Okay, so let's continue this discussion during the conference, and then I'm going to switch to the next presentation that I have. It is a use case for Semantic MediaWiki. Well, I work at the KTZ, that's the Center for Public Administration Research in Vienna, Austria, and as I've mentioned, I've done a lot of work with Semantic MediaWiki. I'm not a programmer. I do Semantic MediaWiki projects for clients. what is the starting point? The starting point is, interestingly, I have no previous deep knowledge about these things, so I'm learning this as I go along. So there's a growing general interest in antiquarianism and historiography. And numismatics, that's the science of coins, of ancient coins, is an important part in that. And up to now, this research has mainly been based on studying printed books. But there is also much more information in libraries that is not in printed books, but in so-called manuscripts. So manuscripts of books that were never published, because, I don't know, publishing was not so easy back then, I guess, in the 16th or 17th century. So there are manuscripts of books, there are translations of books, there are annotations in manuscripts of some ancient scientist who annotated some others, the manuscript of someone else. So, and for this, there was this, or there is this project. This is not working. Oh, it is working, but it's not visible. So okay. By the Austrian Academy of Science, it's called FINA, and don't click on this yet because you will go. You will find the FINA website, but not the FINA wiki. The FINA wiki is finished and ready, but it's not deployed yet. So it is on the internet, but I didn't bring the link now because the link is going to change, and it's on a development machine that's not as fast as I want it to be for a presentation. So my excuse is that I will not show you the real thing, but I have some screenshots. And the interesting situation now was the following. There is a Word document edited by Professor François de Calatay, who is who started in 2011 and put together this evidence in this Word document. So the Word document, this is the main page. This is just an image. And this Word document has 917 pages. So it's really huge. There are some transcriptions of numismatic passages of the letters that these old scientists wrote each other. So they wrote each other letters about coins and about collections, and these parts are edited in this Word document. And around 4,000 of those records are recorded in this way, and it is, as the scientists say, even only a third of what is potentially available. So, and these professors, they invited the scientific community they sent them the Word document and said, if you have additions, please send it to us. Please do not use the track changes. Use separate documents because we are working on this. We will have problems in integrating this into one document. So this 917 pages document is around. So this is now what the FINA wiki looks like. And this is mainly what the content is. It is about annotated printed books. It is about copies or translations of printed books. It is about catalogs of numismatic collections, manuscripts of unpublished works, and then the main part is the correspondence. So it's about letters that people sent each other. And then there, of course, if you look at this content, you see there are persons, of course, there are institutions because the institutions are holding the original sources. There is literature that writes about these findings. There are timelines, maps, there's a glossary, there are statistics, so I will show this to you. And this is what my MediaWiki looks like, you know. We've just talked during the break. Thank you to Stefan Gamke. This is Chameleon without any CSS thing. So this is out-of-the-box Chameleon. There was no money for doing any web design. So this is Chameleon out of the box. It uses Twitter Bootstrap, so it's a pretty neat interface, I would say, without much effort. And now here on the right, you can see these entries in the Word document. Polini, Giovanni, lived from here to there, wrote to somebody else on the 21st of April, and he wrote about this, and then the next letter, and then the next letter. So this was how it was in the Word document. And basically, this is what this letter now looks like. Christophe Plantin wrote to Stephen Winard Piggy on February 6th, 1574, and he wrote it in Vienna. The associated persons is Hubert, I cannot read it here, well, whatever, because he's mentioned. So there is a sender, there is a recipient, and they're writing about a third person. So, and it is written in Latin, and there is a keyword, Greek, because of some reason. And then there is this part of the document that is really, the original part is put in there, and there are references and all that. So, and of course for editing, I use Yaron's page form extensions. I almost always use it. So why? Because hardly I find any use cases where we will design our ontology as we go. This is, in my use cases, not the case. In my use cases, we think about the ontology beforehand. We make up our minds of what form elements we want to have, what attributes we want to have, and then we design it, and then people can fill in the content. So you have these great page forms, also with a map that can be shown, and with the token inputs and all that, and there could be annotations in several languages. For example, in this grand document, as it's called, there are some annotations from a researcher done in English, some are in French, and they are just copied in here so that they are online. Yeah, we also use the semantic site extensions for that you probably know, where the citation is stored semantically. And the literature, there is a separate form also for the literature. It has a BibTeX export and RDF export, which comes out of the box with Semantic MediaWiki. And a person page, and now this is maybe the more interesting part. For the first time, I used the Mermaid extension to do this visualization of the correspondence. So you can see that Christophe Plantin, to our knowledge currently, has only written these two letters here. There is the basic data about the person. There is pictures that you can upload. There is an export possibility. And then on the right-hand side, this is nothing that you enter on the person page. These are queries that are done. So there is one query, show me the map with the birth and the death place. Show me the literature of this, where this person is mentioned. Show me his own work and show me references in the other elements, for example, in the correspondence. So where is this person an author or a recipient or a mentioned person? Yeah. And one thing I just managed to do quickly, this is not perfect, but it is a first step towards something that we need to think about, I think, maybe also during the next days. What I did now is, if you enter a person for the first time, or if you click on edit, it will query Wikidata, and it will either print here no Wikidata item is found with this name, with the name of Christopher Plantin, or it will present this queue number and a description, and then you have to still manually click in this field, and the queue number gets suggested. So this is a simple procedure. People will just click there and say, yeah, this is the one. They can also click here and then see, okay, this is Wikidata. Okay, this is probably going to be the correct one. And then you can click on the queue number, and you have the correct queue number of this person stored in your wiki. Of course, this is not perfect because you might now say, why do we have to add then a birth date manually? Because you could also retrieve that maybe from Wikidata. But who knows? This is just a first step. And of course, out of the box from Semantic MediaWiki, you can use the property type external identifier, saying that I'm storing this queue number and I'm storing this URI where this $1 comes the queue number, and then you have it automatically as a clickable link. So this is the link from the research wiki to Wikidata. Very simple. Yeah, we have filtered lists. Again, thanks to Stefan, this is result format filtered, where you can see all letters in French that are listed in one of these institutions. You can filter your results with that. We have a glossary, semantic glossary, also by Stefan. We have tag clouds, where you also see persons that are mentioned in documents that have not been added yet to the wiki, or you can see persons that are very prominently in the wiki. This is a nice feature. We have filtered maps. Again, this is the filtered result format because you can have a table view or a maps view, and you can see where this correspondence happens, and you can filter with the correspondence date. Makes a nice interactive map. There are also other maps that are not filterable that use the maps extension that display the birth and death places of all persons mentioned there. Also a nice interface. And you can show some statistics, the number of letters per year. You can see in 1733 there are 35 letters now recorded, so that's the peak. You can see some institution statistics, for example. What are the countries of institutions that are mentioned? So where do the documents come from? Mostly from Italy. And this is also just a result format which does this statistics. And this is new. Maybe you have not seen this yet. A quite new extension has been developed by Jeroen de Daw. He has used this timeline.js library that is published by the Knight Foundation, and he has developed a MediaWiki extension. So there you have a much nicer timeline than we have currently, because the timeline that we have in the result formats is very old. And this one is much nicer. You can zoom in and zoom out, and you can click on next forward and back. You can display images and all that. So that's a very nice interface for browsing through this chronologically through these letters. Yeah, and one other feature, I'm using the page forms feature of what is it called? Query forms, yeah. So basically you input a name and you say run query, and then it runs a query and says Johannes Sambuctus, born here and there, has written 2 letters, and you can expand it and you will see these 2 letters, or his not received letters. He's mentioned in 1 letter, and there is another mermaid chart showing these letters. And interestingly, here we are doing the Wikidata query again. So Wikidata knows Johannes Sambuctus as Q, something like that, a Hungarian humanist. And in Wikidata, he's called differently because he has his Hungarian name as main name. I don't know why this is different here, but this is the wiki for the numismatic researchers. They know him probably as Johannes Sambuctus. Yeah, so I think these are nice first ideas how we could interact with Wikidata. Of course, this should be improved, and there are several things to consider. But this is, by the way, this is done with the external data extension that can query basically almost everything. Yeah, so implementing something like this, I would say you are standing on the shoulders of giants. So thank you for, these are There are many extensions involved. Of course, there's Semantic MediaWiki. Of course, there's MediaWiki as the core. I mentioned Chameleon. I mentioned external data, maps, mermaids, modern timeline, page forms, semantic site, semantic glossary, semantic result formats, of course, and also your title icon extension is there, so you can see what is, with very simple icons, you can see, let me show, here. These are the statistics and the map, a map icon, but more importantly, the icons you have here on the first page, you can see. Here. You would see, if you look for some entry, you would see, is it a letter, is it a manuscript, is it a catalog or whatever. So very simple, just free images that were used. But yeah, the title icon extension is very nice, especially also when you search something in the search. And I think, yeah, this was it. I can show you during the next days. I can show you the real thing if you want to know anything. I just didn't want to publish an preliminary URL on a not so fast system. It will be published in the next weeks, I guess. So I will certainly tweet about that, and you will hear from me. Yeah, thank you. Do you have any questions regarding this project?
Okay, thanks for your talk. Maybe I've just missed that, but you were talking about that one Word document with 900 pages. 900 pages. How did you migrate this data? Was this done manually, yes, or was there some automatic process involved?
I tried to. We actually managed to export some of it also as wiki text. We did some attempts to do that, but the problem was that, for example, you can see here, every author is, in bold and italics, but it's not using any formatting rules. So this is formatted manually. So you cannot even say, go to the next section off. So I didn't manage to do it. And as, for example, it says here only the birth and death dates. But if this person is known, for example, in Wikipedia, you can look up the exact birth and death dates. So there is manual labor included anyway. So it is a manual process. And it will take some more time until it is finished. We have now I think 1,600 or so letters from 4,000, so something left to do. But this is done by the researchers themselves. So, and interestingly, maybe this is also interesting. Professor Kalatai, who did this document, I showed him this once. And then he's entering data. There is no teaching him how to use this, nothing. He has the URL, he has a username, he clicks on add letter, add person, he fills out the thing, and he clicks on save. There was a 15-minute introduction of where he can find what, and he's amazed, and he will just do that, and he's quite happy with the whole project. So this is how easy it can be. Yeah. Yes?
If I know, timeline was developed into the SKBit library, yeah? SKBit library by MIT.
Yes. This is the old one, yes?
Yes, and the base data is in JSON format.
No, this timeline basically works like this. You say in Semantic MediaWiki, ask category correspondence, show me the date and an image and the name of the page, and format modern timeline. Mm-hmm. So the modern timeline extension is a new extension, yes, that in the long run, I guess, will replace the now existing result format timeline, because that's very old. So this is a much better JavaScript library, this timeline.js, but it works as a result format from Semantic MediaWiki. You don't have to fiddle with JSON data.
So this work now with semantic data directly from MediaWiki?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is a public extension?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Okay.
Then thank you. Thank you. Okay, the next talk will be by Yaron about BPM, which I was very much looking forward to because it undermines one of the USPs for MediaWiki, and that is its rapid prototyping capabilities. Imagine BPM systems are, they're at any scale, at any cost, but if you want to implement one that just serves the purpose immediately, either you have to code it yourself in some... Or you just, use Semantic MediaWiki or Cargo to actually come up with a first version, let it play with your employees, and then,
Thanks.
evaluate. Okay, please, Yaron.
Okay. Hello. Okay, how's, slippery. Hello. Is that working? Do I need to turn it up or is this fine? It's fine. Hello? What? It's fine. All right, cool. Hi, everyone. This is my talk about business process management. Oh, I can use this thing to move forward? Or probably not because it's... Oh, well, okay. I'll just do it manually. This is me. My name is Yaron Koren. I do all these different things. I live in New Jersey. Semantic MediaWiki and Cargo, I'll talk about Cargo tomorrow, but if you haven't heard of it. They both support a lot of visualizations and use cases. There's one use case, well, there's a number of use cases that aren't supported, but the one I wanted to be talking about is business process management, or BPM. If you don't know about it, Wikipedia definition is the use of various methods to discover, model, analyze, measure, improve, optimize, and automate business processes. I was totally new to this whole world before I started looking into it about a month or two ago. So if you haven't heard of it either, then you're in the same position I was. It is widely used, and if you're a consultant like me, the incentive to get involved in it is there's potentially a lot of money involved, and I apologize, it's not dollars, it's euros. So I mean, I haven't really explained what business process management is, other than that stock Wikipedia definition. But hopefully these examples will give a sense, as much of a sense as I have anyway, of what BPM is. I'm somewhat on shaky ground here, so feel free to correct me if I'm missing something obvious or whatever. But I'm listing here four standard BPM visualizations. The big one, I think, is flowcharts. And then I don't know how to pronounce those, racky matrices or matrices, I don't know. Racy, literally, okay. So those first two are for repeated processes, things that just sort of last indefinitely, and then the other two I think are for project-specific ones where you're tracking the development of a single specific project over time. That's Gantt charts and Kanban boards. And Gantt charts actually came up in somebody's talk. Was it yours, Cindy? Did you have a Gantt chart or something? Yeah. It was a what? Oh, a PERT chart, yeah, okay, which is similar. You're right, okay. So I just have some sample images to try to explain what each of these are. A flowchart is going to involve boxes and arrows pointing to one another to represent an entire workflow. A RACI matrix, it has a listing of everyone's different responsibilities, although that's just the R of RACI, but basically everyone's different involvement in different aspects of projects. A Gantt chart shows the progress of a project over time. And then a Kanban board is, well, there's stuff like Trello and Fabricator, for that matter, which I think would fit the definition of a Kanban board, or Kanban, I'm not sure. It's Japanese in origin. I think it came from Toyota, which actually is a big pioneer in a lot of this kind of project management stuff. So yeah, it's basically you put the different tasks within different columns or buckets or what have you, and then they can move over time as they get accomplished. So and here, this is just stuff I know about BPM tools for visualizing and creating this stuff on the web, at least. I think most of these are JavaScript based, except for GraphViz. There's BPMN.io, Mermaid, which already came up in the previous talk, which is popular, and then a few others. GraphViz is server side, and the others are client side. I don't know of standard tools for RACI matrices or Kanban boards. I didn't look too hard, but yeah. I mean, well, obviously there's applications that have them, but in terms of open source JavaScript tools or something to let you integrate into your system, which is the relevant thing here. Yeah. Okay. So the question is how best to support this stuff in MediaWiki. The idea is, if you want to have like a Kanban board or whatever in your wiki, what's the best way to do it? So there's really two big questions, I think. Should the data be stored across a lot of wiki pages? So for instance, with a flowchart, should each box and arrow have its own wiki page, or each box or whatever? Or should it just be in one big page or file, however you look at it? And then the other one is, if it is stored in one page or file, should it also be queryable? I mean, if you're storing each thing as its own page, then it's pretty easy to query it probably, because you can just store it in Semantic MediaWiki or Cargo and then do it that way. So yeah, those are the kinds of things I've been thinking about. So as far as one wiki page versus many, I think it depends on the nature of the visualization. So, for example, I just had a conversation about this yesterday. If you're putting together a wiki for a conference, should the entire schedule be semantic, and should there be a page for each talk with the different times for each, or should it all be on one page? There's strengths and weaknesses in each case. One weakness is if you want to change around a talk, you might have to edit 10 different pages slightly to get that working. So yeah, I think the more the different elements are dependent on one another, the more argument there is for having everything be in one big page as opposed to a lot of different pages. If they're really independent, then probably different pages are the way to go. And then if there's a standard file syntax that you can use, then it also is an argument for having one big page. So this is just my thoughts, just very briefly. Flowcharts, one page. RACI matrices, many. Gantt charts, one page. Kanban boards, many. And you can disagree. I could be wrong about one or all of these. So what's supported in MediaWiki already? There's an extension called Cognitive Process Designer, another one called Mermaid, which was already discussed, and then a result format for Gantt charts specifically in the Semantic Result Formats extension. There might be others. Does Blue Spice have anything for BPM? No? Okay, cool. All right. So this might be it. Not cool as in that's good, but as it just means this might be, I didn't miss anything big. The Cognitive Process Designer, it no longer works. It's in use, but with some modifications, people have used it. I don't think it's the right approach. because it does store data across a lot of pages, and I think for flowcharts, there's just so much, everything's so connected, and there's so much information there that it's really awkward, I think, to store everything as just lots and lots of wiki pages together. But we'll do a demo, so we'll see what that's about. The Mermaid extension does exist and does work. It just provides a wrapper around the Mermaid.js library, which is actually a really cool library. And it stores all the data in one place. It's just a little Mermaid file. Did you have a comment or something? I have a million comments. Oh, okay. Cool. Okay. And then, yeah, the Gantt result format I mentioned. So I'm working on an extension tentatively called Diagrams. It's not a great name. It's a little too generic. I'll probably change it. In theory, it's not a BPM extension because it just, in theory, supports any diagram. In practice, it might be because that's the kind of thing that makes sense to have to store in a wiki, those kinds of diagrams. So the approach is everything is stored in a wiki page, in one big wiki page for each thing. And then you can edit and display it using graphical tools. And then separately, it also lets Cargo or Semantic MediaWiki store that data in a queryable way. So this will make more sense once I show it. Let me go back here. So right now, there's two visualizations supported. BPMN, which is the flowchart, a very standard flowchart syntax, and Gantt charts. So it's only running right now on one. I'm glad this isn't a standard. Oh, it is French. No wonder. Oh no, it's okay. Well, almost got it right. Yeah, so it is. And there's no shift. Alt. There is a shift? Yeah. Found it. Okay.
Go ahead.
It's only right now on my wiki Discourse DB, which is sort of that mostly serves as a test wiki for software. So if I go to BPMN, what did I call it? Test diagram. Okay. Oh, that was just my error. Oh no, that wasn't my error. That was because the M was different. It was in a different place. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So this is just a random diagram. It's based off of something, and then I kept moving stuff around. This file this page just holds this content. It's a lot like Lua, like the Scribunto extension, where it just holds Lua code, and then it automatically displays the actual visualization of it right on the page. But if I go to the Edit tab, you can see it's just BPMN XML. This is apparently the standard syntax. It's like popular syntax for flowcharts. But then, if I click on the Edit Diagram tab, it uses the BPMN JS library. It actually also uses it to display it. But here, you can edit it. You can move stuff around. And you can, add whatever you want, and then save it. I can't save it because I'm not logged in, but that's the idea. And then you get all the benefits of having it on a wiki where you can see. This is some previous change I made. You can see all the changes that happen, and you can revert and so forth. So already there's the advantage of having version control on your flowcharts, which I don't think is possible in any other way. So that's BPMN using BPMN.js, and then the other namespace that's supported now is Gantt test. I think test diagram. Oh my god. Yeah, I think test diagram 2 was the more interesting one. Yeah, okay. So I just put stuff together on the page. A Gantt chart using this other open source JavaScript library. This is read only, but then if I click on edit diagram, well, as you might expect, it lets me move stuff around and create new connections and whatever people want to do with Gantt charts. Is this? Yeah, stuff like that. You know, whatever I want to do. I rename tasks and oh yeah, and you can set the status, the progress status for each task. What just happened? Oh, okay. You can, yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, that's like a standard thing in Gantt charts that you can set the progress and all that. Yeah. So then the only other feature of this that is, well, so you can also display all these outside in other pages. You can just say, you know, include this diagram. And then if you know about Cargo, it provides a hook. So either Semantic MediaWiki or Cargo can use this data and store it. In this case, I made use of the hooks. So there's this table for BPMN data where it just stores some of the stuff. So you can, you know, that you can query and say and find, you know, find all the tasks that connect to this task or that kind of thing. It's all stored in this table, and same with the Gantt data one. I don't know how useful all of this is, but but it, I mean, it takes care of, I guess, one of the major reasons to store everything in separate pages is because you can access all this data here. It parses through the Gantt or BPMN data and stores it in a queryable way. Does all that make sense? Oh yeah, question about that.
Just click one of the link in the first column.
Here? Yeah. This one? Yeah, it'll just bring you to the page where that is stored. This happens to be the other test page I created with a Gantt chart. It's just a one task thing. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I apologize if you have no idea what all this cargo table stuff is. But the basic idea is that it's possible to use a hook to store the data, even though it's stored in this long syntax that's not, you know, not part of Cargo or Semantic MediaWiki. What else makes sense for diagrams? I'm not sure. I mean, there are other syntaxes that would be useful to support. Mermaid is the obvious one. There's some others that, for various reasons, Draw.io I couldn't get working. Mermaid doesn't have a graphical editor. I think that would be really cool. I did a search, and a lot of other people have asked about that too. If anybody out there wants an open source project to work on with maybe a lot of glory involved, that's potentially a really interesting one to do, a JavaScript editor for Mermaid. But yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe other people have ideas about what makes sense. And then Kanban and Racy, those actually might be best implemented via regular wiki pages, so this whole diagrams extension wouldn't make sense for them. These are just some thoughts. With Kanban boards, the best solution might be something called special multi-page edit, which you might not have heard about, but it's a feature in page forms that lets you edit a lot of pages together. So it looks like a Kanban board, and you move stuff around as you would in, you know, fabricate or whatever. With racy matrices, that might be best implemented as just a result format. And you store all the responsibilities on people's individual pages. That's it. I mean, this is all. The extension hasn't been released yet, and I'm really a newcomer to BPM, so I'm very curious to hear if anybody has any thoughts about any of this, whether I've missed something obvious or you know, whether there's really anything. Yeah. So I'll go ahead.
That's very cool. Especially
Cool.
the Gantt chart, I've been wanting one
Oh,
of
really?
those that's really functional for a while. So that looks like the nicest, both visually as well as ability to drag things around that I've seen for using in a wiki. So that's awesome.
Oh, okay, cool.
I wanted to mention a few things. Another one that I know exists, at least that I've seen, Darren Welsh at NASA has developed semantic actions. And so it allows you to create actions that are on various pages and then represent them in essentially a Kanban board. It doesn't have the ability to drag and drop things from between columns as far as I know, but that's another one to look at. And it does store the information across different pages.
Yeah, okay. Are those actions wiki specific, like workflow within the wiki, or it can be anything?
It can be anything.
Oh, really?
It can be
Okay.
anything.
I'll look at that.
They created it for use in meetings to create action items in a meeting.
Yeah.
And then be able to visualize the actions
Yeah.
across different columns workflow.
Okay. Yeah, I'll look at that.
So that was one thing. As far as, storing the information across, in a single page or across pages in the wiki, it's definitely an interesting, trade-off. What you were able to do with editing the diagram in place and dragging things around and placing nodes, it's helpful to be able to store that information, I guess, in one place. Although I guess you could edit pages across the wiki if you did that.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about with a flow chart. Well, I guess with
that
either
was with
case.
your BPM
Yeah, I mean,
flowchart. Yeah.
right, yeah. I mean, that's what cognitive process designer tries to do, and there's even like an X and Y coordinate value for each page. I don't think they capture everything that, like, all the exact location of the arrows and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
For the mermaid diagram I showed earlier, the data is culled from a semantic query across pages in the wiki, so that
Sure.
each task is its own page. Pluses and minuses to that. I actually use, I generate the graph language for Mermaid, the Mermaid input in a Lua script by using semantic queries. And sort of build up that page, but it means that you have to know the format. It's not nearly as nice as being able to just plug it into an extension.
Yeah.
And put it in there. But it has the advantage that I'm able to cull the information by scraping Fabricator and building the information in different pages. Also, if you
Right.
want to use the nodes in your graph for multiple purposes, either putting them in different graphs for different aspects, having them embedded in a single page doesn't really work.
Yeah, sure.
So that would be an advantage. And for whoever it is who's going to be doing work on Mermaid, while you're going and adding the editor for it, the line layout, I had seen that there was an improvement in a more recent version of Mermaid. I just downloaded the new Mermaid, and it's not better. The lines wind up crossing in bad ways, and so somebody needs to work on that too.
Okay. Well, if anyone from the Mermaid team is listening,
That would be awesome.
or some ambitious 15-year-old or whatever is watching, it'll definitely be.
Just a few words. I'm not an expert on MediaWiki. And just give you my point of view as a 20 years experience on BPM.
Okay.
And I would say very interesting. Really a lot of potential. But it took me until the presentation of the tool to understand where you want it to come. Because you explain the context, I'll just give you a high-level view. BPMN is now the standard in the business to define, describe, and document business processes. BPMN stands from Business Process Modeling and Notation. That means it embarks the XML standard as an XMI for models and so on. It is the standard for exchange of data between two users describing or using their diagram. And the notation, as you show the boxes and so on, it is the notation which is part also of the norm, of the standard. Okay? So you should really focus on that. It is definitely used in any company working in business process description. What I see as really the added value is what is missing in all companies is that you have the graphic one side and the documentation on Word or whatever on the other side. So what would be really interesting is focused on the deep documentation of each task or each relation, each role, and so on, which is really the information that the user needs to have. And if I may make a link between, for instance, as an example, the user manual, which were shown by Dokit this morning, definitely user manual is a documentation of a task within a process. So for the user coming to his task, the best way, the more logical way, is to come from the high-level process. Where should I do that? And then you click and you enter in the detailed description of what you have to do at this step. Really going through the graphical vision to a very deep, detailed documentation of the task and the context of the task and so on. And then going to maybe the equipment you need to do these tasks, the material or tools you need, and then going down in the chain of documentation.
You're saying that's information that can't just be stored in one flow chart. It has
I mean, as soon as you go into the flow, the process description, it's as we say, a Russian doll system. You have the high level. For instance, we have described in the railway this last 6 months ago, the high-level process from design to operation of a new track. It's a A0 page, so it's one page. I agree, it's one page, but A0 page.
8.5 by 11, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
A0, you know, it's, I don't remember how many A4, but it's a huge page on the wall. And it's the high level. And each box on this chart, you click on it, and you enter in a new page for A3 approximately, and you click and go down and down and down. But it's always linked between tasks. So if you describe them at high level, you will have the high-level description. You click on it, you go down next step and so on, and you have a consistent rule that everyone can contribute at his level, where is his responsibility, building all together a very consistent rule. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'll look in that. I'll see if BPMN.js, which is the library I'm using and I'm constrained by, if it supports linking. I guess you're saying linking from one flowchart to another, which shows a low-level view of one node or something.
It's just a matter of aggregation, the aggregation. It's zooming.
Right. Yeah.
But from my opinion, then. What you save inside Semantic MediaWiki is not exactly the BPMN format. Then you need to have a kind of Semantic Wiki version of these BPMN things, where you probably, in my opinion, you split into pages, and then you aggregate everything, and then you can extract a BPMN version of it and display it. And that's it. And you play with both sides of the same data.
Right. Well, that gets into the basic issue I was talking about, which is should you store everything in one page or in multiple pages? In my case, I still think it makes sense to have it in one page as a true BPM and XML thing, and then just store the business relevant part of that elsewhere, as opposed to storing everything, as opposed to storing the grid coordinates and all this stuff. Just store the fact that task A points to task B in this way with this kind of relationship, that kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to pick up on exactly that. If a wiki would be used in an organization to document tasks and processes or whatever, they would probably have separate pages for each task, because there is a lot of documentation involved for this task. So this is why the current implementations, like the Gantt result format or whatever, they are just used to display the relations of different pages in a specified format. So this could be done with BPMN, but the editor got me interested, because the editor now would mean that you're maybe changing one process from 1 month to the next. This would mean that you would have, if you click save on the chart, that you would have to update the one page that has the date stored on its page. Then it would be very useful, because I don't believe in this one big XML file, and you would be happy with that. If you would use a wiki for your documentation purposes, you would have tasks and persons involved and whatever as separate pages in your wiki. And this could be displayed in BPMN notation. And if you change something in the editor, you would have to change several pages or several attributes on several pages, which would be great. I don't know if this can be done. But I think this one-page approach would be quite limiting. So maybe there is a solution for that, of really, if you click on save, then you know, okay, this task has been moved from 1 week to the next, or the date has been moved, and this date is going to be written in the page or in the property of this one page that is mentioned. So that would be the theoretical solution, I guess.
Okay.
Anyone else? Just as a remark, this discussion reminded me of one of the constituent elements of the semantic web is the AAA. Anyone can say anything about anything. And I think we just extended it into a quadruple A, because now it's anything, anyone could say anything about anything, anywhere. So it's interesting to tie it in across sources.
Okay.
Anyway, that was just a remark. So no more questions there? Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
You ready to, yeah, you've got your presentation there? Good. Okay, now we have, Mark, just go ahead and prepare yourself. Yeah, Mark is going to elaborate on a topic that I could envisage being one of the first Medium articles, because when I set up a more sophisticated authentication on our MW stake management wiki, I had to get back to Cindy to actually make it work. It was a great experience. It was spectacular because Cindy hacked the database live, something that I would never dare to, and I would never let anyone else do that than Cindy on my. You right? C'est bizarre, hein? Yeah, that will work. Okay, please, Mark.
Hello. this works. Anyway. Oh, yeah, the lanyard would work. Yeah. Yay.
It's okay?
Yeah, it's fine for me. I won't move. I'm not moving. MediaWiki authentication. What do you need to do to get your wiki to work with your users? Because you already have users. You just want them to use the wiki. And we're talking about, I'll go back here. Before I start, you should know that this is a just-in-time presentation. I learned from my friend who writes about risk management that this is the proper way to do things. You do them just in time so that if you don't have to do them, for example, if for whatever reason the world falls apart, then you haven't done an unnecessary thing. So, we're here. The presentation is done just in time. Keep that in mind when you see any flaws. So anyway, we're talking about authentication, not authorization. So authentication, just a refresher, is, this is Joe. I know this is Joe because I'm vouching for Joe. I'm not going to tell you what Joe can do. That's your responsibility. Figure out what he's authorized to do. So we're just talking about authentication. I will mention some authorization stuff in here, but mostly just want to make sure you know who the user is. So there are a few different types of authentication that is available. Just in a quick review of MediaWiki.org, I found a few things. The first one, familiar to many people, is remote user. There's a new thing, newish. I'm an old man, so it's newish. Bot passwords. There's LDAP. It's a favorite. SAML. And then there's OpenID Connect, which is based on OAuth 2, which is based on OAuth as a revision of, anyway. So which do you want to use? Well, yeah, he just gave you this laundry. Just pick one. No, you don't do that. So remote user is useful if you already have your user authenticating to the web server somehow. It could be Kerberos, NTLM. It could be, I don't know. One of the clients I have has a CA widget that they drop into Apache, and it's buggy, and it drove me crazy. But it takes care of all the authentication and just tells MediaWiki, here's a user, here's everything we know about this user. So yeah, that's one way to do it. Just use remote user and trust the web server to take care of the authentication for you. Yeah, like I said, it does whatever your web server can do. NTLM, which is Windows SSO, Kerberos, which is what NTLM is built on, or whatever else. Bot passwords. So you have a wiki. This is not quite user authentication. This is more like application authentication. If you write a bot, and you want to give that bot the same rights that you have, or maybe a little more restricted subset, because maybe you wrote crappy code and you have bugs and it's going to delete the wiki. You don't want to really delete the wiki, so you want to take away that ability. anyway, so it takes more configuration if you're using remote user because you have to intercept the user and figure out when users need to get to bot passwords and when they're authenticated with bot passwords as opposed to remote user or other authentication systems. But the big bonus here is it's built into MediaWiki. You just go to special bot passwords, create a bot user, get a password. There you go. In big organizations, most of you are familiar with LDAP or Active Directory. So it's a central repository of Microsoft now, I believe, has Azure hosting for or some tie-in for LDAP so that your Active Directory users can go be synchronized with your Office 365, whatever. Anyway, you can tie MediaWiki into that. LDAP can also give you a few other attributes that you might be interested in for MediaWiki, like the user's gender, their language, groups that they're a member of, email. That can help you with the authorization. The groups can help you with the authorization piece. But the email, time zone, all that other stuff can fill out the user's profile. So you can just say, I'm not going to allow my users to edit their preferences page for language. I'm going to rely on what LDAP says. So yeah, again, this is usually when I do this, I tie it with there's an SSO that is probably remote user on top, but then when you want to populate the user information, you use LDAP queries. That's how I usually do it. And do the authentication, I wrote a LDAP groups extension to do that. So yeah, then there's SAML, which is a nightmare. And I've helped a few people after I went through my own nightmare with it. I helped a few people configure it. So yeah, it's out there. It's widely available. It's a nightmare. The hard part is troubleshooting all the errors and stuff that you run into. Because the feedback is very, very difficult. I mean, anyway. I won't regale you with too many nightmare stories. So last night, like I said, this is just in time. Last night I tried out OpenID Connect, which is, first I was going to use OAuth 2 for my talk here, but then Cindy bonked me over the head and I looked at OpenID Connect and I was like, wow, this is great, because there's just a URL. You point it to the URL, and it gets all the configuration information it needs from there, and then it can figure out, using Cindy's pluggable auth integrated OpenID Connect extension, you can map your users and whatnot, and it takes care of all that. So yeah, here's in the PDF, each of these is linked, which it goes to, let's see if I can do it on this one. We'll go to an example tenant. Oh, I don't know. Is that authorized? Do we let it? Anyway, there it is. This is JSON blob. If it were better formatted, you could see that it's just telling you, it's just telling the OpenID Connect client where to go to get things. And this is what Microsoft does this for all their Office 365 users. Let's see, go back. Oh no, not go back. Switch back over to there. So, is there a timer? No, because I'm going really fast, and everyone's just happy. Because I'm about done. So ORCID are there any researchers here with an ORCID? ORCID. Okay, great. You can try this out. I don't have the URL up there. I thought I did, but I guess I didn't. If you go to web.network.com/orchidwiki, just one word, all lowercase, the login there should let you log in on your ORCID. Let's see if I can make it work with my ID. ORCID. There's no Azure key switch here. It's been a long time since I've looked at the keys like this. Let's see. I was not expecting this bit. Good. Oh. See if I got. Oh. No, I didn't. Thank you. Because that's, yeah, I was thinking of the ORCID, not the ORCID. Do. Is it coming? Yeah, okay. I'm sorry, this is on my slow server, so. Anyway, I'll just show you. So, again, this is all that I put in my local settings file to make this work. That's all I have in there. I don't like the usernames. The usernames here are a string of numbers, but there was no way to. The ORCID interface does not offer emails or a good, unique name. So I had to go with their actual ID. Is this loading? I hope it's loading. It's my server is not that slow. Come on. I know it's slow, but anyway, the point is, if this ever loaded, all I would have to do is click the login, and immediately I would be taken to, as a result of those lines of configuration, I would be taken to the ORCID sign-in page. I would sign in there, and then there would be communication, and my ORCID identifier would show up as my username, and I would be logged in. And you could use that to authenticate your users, because there's a few million ORCID users out there. I have a client, Wiki Pathways, who wants to use ORCID to authenticate their users. So, that helps here as well. So anyway, any questions about authentication or what you should use? Do you have any questions, Lex? Because I did this for you.
No, I appreciate the overview. Thank you.
Okay. Good. I'm glad there's no questions. I guess that means it's good.
Of course there's questions.
So, thanks for the talk. Mark, you have shown the OpenID Connect. Is that right? So have you worked with OpenID also? And can you tell about the difference?
No, it's not built on Sendinos.
OpenID was the first version of the protocol. It is not line compatible with OpenID Connect. So they're essentially same organization, developed, but they are not compatible with each other. I think there are people that are still using OpenID just because they were using it before and old technology never dies. But the way to go now is OpenID Connect. You wouldn't, yeah, I would not start with OpenID at this point. And as Mark said, OpenID Connect is a layer on top of OAuth 2. So it uses OAuth 2 for the authentication exchange and that workflow, but then OpenID Connect goes further than that and allows you to also get the user attributes in a standard way as part of the protocol.
It also has that really nifty auto discovery thing, so you don't have to set up all this configuration. You just have to say, okay, this is my username, password, and here's where you go look. And then
Yeah,
it'll discover all that.
Yeah, that screen that he had with all the different ones, each one has a XML file that .well-known something or other that has that negotiation information to allow you to find the bits that you need in order to authenticate.
Yeah, so if you're really curious, you could go look at each one of those links and you'd see how to connect. You know, you just point to the URL and it's there. Oh, so it's sweet. So anyway, it did come up eventually. So let's see if this comes up quickly. Probably not. Oh, look, there we're on OrcID. It says, who are you? I say with my non-AZERTY key hands. My password is easy. I changed it just for this demo. Oh, let's see.
Yeah, the keyboard is difficult
For
French people.
yeah. Is that an @ sign? I guess. Yeah. Are you sure? I don't think it's a 0. Okay, fine. How do I do the @ sign? It's not that. Is it that? There. I learned how to use the Alt-J key. Not. This is easy. Oh, wait, what? What?
Careful, you just dropped the...
You said I had a period, but my...
No. I was saying the period is particularly nasty to get.
Yeah. So this is just, it's none, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see. This is easy. Oh, I have to type there. N-O. Yeah, so if anyone wants to hack me right now, go ahead. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a temporary password. I don't know what it is. It's his keyboard, that's what it is. I'm almost done. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, so if it works, really it does. And after you click login here, it takes you back and you see your username and it's beautiful. If only I had not changed my password to such a difficult thing that I guess somewhere out there on YouTube they've hacked me now and I'm gonna have to recover it. Anyway, so there we are. Any other questions?
Is it possible to use this OrcID on a server that's not connected to the internet?
It's not what?
Connected to the internet.
Yes.
You can.
As long as your user can get to the internet.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, thank you.
As a matter of fact, for testing, I have a virtual machine here, and as long as it could get out, as long as it could say, you know, get the, I say yes, I'm sorry, I somewhat lied. I forgot, it has to go out and get that OpenID, the well-known URL. I'm sure there's a way to cache it. There has to be, right? Yes, there does. Come on, don't shake your head. It's a small matter of programming. So yes. You could also run the authentication server locally, but I'm pretty sure you can cache it. Look, if nothing else, put a cache for your wiki to use and just say, okay, well, they're looking for this. Here it is.
You showed that when you clicked on login, you were immediately redirected.
Yes.
So can I still have my local wiki users parallel to that, or do I have to decide?
Let's ask Cindy. Can he still have his normal users, his normal wiki users, as well as those who use, you know, OpenID Connect? And you can have multiple OpenID Connect providers. So maybe you could set up an OpenID provider for your own. I don't know.
The MediaWiki authentication framework built into core allows you to have multiple authentication providers, and the pluggable auth extension allows you to enable local login, which is username, password, where the information is stored in the local database, in addition to pluggable auth with an additional provider. So you can have your local providers, your local login enabled, and you can also have multiple different remote providers. Right now, pluggable auth is currently restricted to a single pluggable auth plugin at a time, but that's something that could be changed in the codes that you
Right.
have multiple ones.
But if all your providers have OpenID Connect, then you could just use all your providers.
Yes, so where you had, what was it, PayPal, and Microsoft and Google.
Yep.
What happens is if in your configuration file you specify multiple endpoints, that OpenID Connect configuration is an array, and you can have multiple values in there.
Yep.
And what happens is then if you go to the OpenID Connect page, it gives you a menu of endpoints, and you select one, and then it redirects you to the one that you selected.
Yeah.
Just a question to make sure I understand the added value. What I understand is you present something which can be used as a SSO portal for multi-tenant application, I would say. Because if I take our example in Railway, I showed you this morning that we have several initiatives and solutions which are dealing with the same stakeholders and so on. So when we go to Ontario, to Rate Topo Model, to Ulinks, to AIFC, and we turn around, each time we have to log in. With such solution, that means that we would have a capability to have one high-level login with ORCID, for instance, and then have we could jump from one solution to another without having to log in each time.
I mean,
that's it?
It depends upon your application. Are they all wikis, or are they all separate applications? One's email and one's, you know, I don't know.
No,
But yes, the idea, yes. Once you have, you could have a aggregator set up such that this guy knows about, this is like how Microsoft does Office 365. If you go to their login, you type in your email, and it takes you to your company's login.
Yes.
You could do something like that, and then, OpenID Connect works with that sort of login.
So that's we know SSO single sign-on
Right.
inside companies because it's easy. You are in charge of the rule. So you can, but the complexity is when you are in an open world where you have a multi-tenant application, where it is in a community, where you want to increase performance.
Right.
And from what I understand, this would be a solution to get all the application linked to ORCID.
Oh, yeah. ORCID is, okay, so ORCID itself is kind of targeted to researchers. I think that's what the R stands for in ORCID. But you could set up a similar sort of thing for your, or, I got an ORCID ID, so I'm not a researcher. So if you wanted to abuse their system in that way, I'm sure you could.
Okay. Thank you.
I really think, though, that instead of abusing ORCID, probably should set up your own system for, aggregating users. But anyway. Or find one that they already use.
So I just have one more comment for a situation where you're reusing something like ORCID or Google for your authentication. So I do use for my wiki farm that I showed earlier with my graphs, I'm using OpenID Connect. So Wikimedia email is part of the Google G Suite. So my email address is a valid Google-provided email address. So I'm using ORCID with Google to log into my wiki in my wiki farm because I have credentials through work. But I don't want to let everybody who has a Google ID log into my wiki. So that's where the additional part, that very first slide that Mark showed saying the difference between authentication and authorization. So the first step is the authentication. You prove who you are. And that's done with Google. Then Pluggable Auth, which is the extension that the OpenID Connect extension builds on, has a second authorization step. And so I use a plugin called Email Authorization where I can create a list of emails of people who are authorized to log into the wiki. So if you go through the OpenID Connect authentication process and it says, yes, we know who this person is, it then says, oh, but are they authorized to log into this wiki? And that allows you to limit the set of people. So you probably don't want to let anybody who has an ORCID log into your wiki. It's probably, if you've got an ORCID to prove who you are, plus some other measure of authorization. There's an LDAP authorization extension in addition to the LDAP authentication one. So you can use LDAP rules with Boolean expressions to limit the set of users that can actually log in.
Anyone else?
All questions are answered. Perfect. Yay. I need a caffeine break.
Okay, I'd like to seize the next 10 minutes for addressing the lightning talks and the unconference, mainly because we're on a strict schedule with coffee, and coffee will only be served at 3:30, and it's 3:19. So we would have to spend 11 minutes without coffee, so let's use those minutes productively. I have prepared 2 links on the conference page about lightning talks and the unconference. The lightning talks will be 45 minutes, and the open mic lightning talk would normally be around 5 minutes, so that leaves us with 9 lightning talks. So please, if you have one that you want to hold, it can be, it's not selected. It will only be selected once it's more than 9. Otherwise, everything will be accepted. Just please put it there. I can't just feel what you want to contribute. I have to see it, and I will put it in a good order and maybe ask you a couple of questions before we hold that. So that would be the lightning talks. Secondly, the unconference. I would like to have, as soon as possible, a good idea of what you might want to see there. You now got to know the highly distinguished selection of ladies and gentlemen we have in here. You know about the competence, you know about the questions that were raised. So please, if you can naturally gather into groups, I guess there could be a first natural distinction between tech-oriented and non-tech-oriented. If everyone is interested in everything, it will be a sequential conference. If there are people who say, well, no, I'm not on the tech side, but I want to, and actually I just now, to finish this thought, I have to add something where I will want to pull my rank. If anyone has not subscribed for the unconference day, but now, based on today, feels like staying, just stay, okay? We're not going to send anyone home. We're here to converse. If that's, maybe there's not enough food, I don't know. You have to share food, but otherwise, that would be wonderful. Because, and I say that because I think Richard and Robert, you thought of going home tomorrow? Oh, Friday, but did you subscribe for the workshop day? I don't think so. So if you want to stay, please stay, because maybe there are people who want to join you with in a session there. But please, again, you see on the conference page a link to the unconference section, so on. Please run wild with your ideas there. Put down whatever you want. I will do my best to allocate you into productive groups. And if it happens to be sequential, okay. If not, we're going to split around the room. Maybe we can get a second projector, whatever. The current state of affairs there is that I had one request by UIC members about semantic business domain modeling, which happens to be my passion. So I'm happy to launch that one. You can talk to, it was Olivier who was actually suggesting this. So maybe, you know, gather in groups, try to aggregate interests, needs. If someone can provide, you know, tuition in some way, please just, you know, make that known to me, and I can allocate you in groups, and I hope we can get a really good unconference session, because I tell you, the one we had in San Francisco was amazingly productive. It's actually because of that unconference day that we are actually here today, because Eri Manya enjoyed that day so much that he said, why don't you all come to Paris? So with this, I think, yeah, there's still 5 minutes. Do you have anything about the lightning talks and unconference already now? Because if you want to voice your interest now you have the, you know, all the people listening. Afterwards, it will be slightly segregated. Is there any comment about the unconference session now? Oh, yes. Sorry, there is one fixed contribution, and that's WS Forms by Victor. WS Forms is, and Victor, correct me if I'm wrong there, but you will then explain it in plain detail, is sort of to some extent, I think, an alternative to page forms based on pure HTML5. We had heard about that, this extension, or I'm not sure whether it's an extension yet. Exactly, it is, I think. It's not published yet, is it? More or less, yeah. And we were all intrigued by the thought, so I asked Victor to actually, this time, show it to us, and maybe even we can tie into the functionality, install it locally on our systems, and just try it out, just to see, you know, competition between approaches fosters innovation. So maybe we can, you know, tap into the best of all. So that would be one sort of technical, interactive, usability-geared unconference contribution. And then we have this domain modeling, which deals with how do you optimally install a templating system and how do you add semantization. Sometimes I explain to people that when you actually install MediaWiki and Semantic MediaWiki, it's like if you have a hull of a building with no floors, no doors, no stairways, no nothing. And now you can turn that building either into a hotel or into a factory or into a public swimming pool. But you need a different set of ontology in order to turn the MediaWiki into one of these special use cases. And I have a very structured approach for that. I've shown that a couple of times at conferences, but I'm willing to share that again. So that would be meeting your request. If if more people are interested in that, I would be thrilled about this. Maybe we can split. If some people say, no, that's too technical for me, I want to do something else and follow up with Richard or others and deal about non-technical stuff, that would be fine as well. So do you have any, yes?
So hello, I came with a few tools and ideas about how to use the linking open data with Semantic MediaWiki. So I would like, if people are interested in how to, the linking open data, so DBpedia and all that. LOD, yes. So if people are interested in how to add data into the load, or get data from it, or link your data with them, with the one already existing in the load, could be an interesting thing. And during the lightning talk, I will just show the tools, the visual tools that I use, and that might help.
Yeah, you just meant, just very quickly, you can use your lightning talks to actually advertise what you want to do on the unconference day. So that's a great, sorry, I forgot that.
I'd love to see on the unconference a workshop on how to write a unit test in for Semantic MediaWiki, because I don't know how to do that, and I would like to learn it. I don't know if there's anybody here who can educate me. Karsten?
Yeah, so what the complementary question here is, of course, who could provide that knowledge? You don't have to answer now, but please keep Bernard in the corner of your eye. Was it?
Yeah. Hi. So in our project, we have a situation of a lot of spam contents with a lot of spam users. So I'd like to see how to delete those, actually, and to combat with the spam contents.
That would be one of your... No? Karsten? You would have... Yeah, but it's an effective method, that I know. That's why.
Yeah. And could we agree that all groups are supposed to provide a minute at the end of the discussion, so everybody can share the results of the discussions?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So at the end of the conference day, we would report on, as we have done at all hackathons, Wikimania, and yeah, of course, by all means. Yeah, I guess. And well, Yaron?
For the unconference, I'm hoping to work with Clément over there on getting some of those docket improvements into page forms. But if anybody else wants to participate in that, get into some CSS and other stuff, then you're definitely welcome.
I have a question there. Since this is Bootstrap 3, right? Are you already upgrading to Bootstrap 4?
No, we haven't planned it yet.
Not yet, because I would be interested in that, actually. Okay, so yeah, now we have a CSS, visualization, UI, UX thing. We have fighting spam, writing a unit test, LOD. Just one clarification. You have 1 more minute and then it's coffee. A clarification on the linked open data. So it would differ from RDFIO in the sense that it wouldn't import data. It would just link to it, right? That's the main difference. Yeah. Okay. I would be. Okay. Okay. Richard, what about your MediaWiki news you mentioned you wanted to maybe cooperate on something. If you're still here, that would I tremendously appreciate on Friday.
Yeah, let's see. I'm afraid no.
Okay, you want to check it out.
I just had a question about the unit test one. Unit tests in Semantic MediaWiki are different from the ones in MediaWiki. Is the interest specifically in Semantic MediaWiki as opposed to MediaWiki?
For me, yes, because I'm not very good at fabricator. I try to find a way around GitHub, and maybe I could provide some unit tests for some result formats or something. So very limited focus for me because I want to learn it and get started.
Okay, so could the people who mentioned this actually add it to that section there? It's actually one page. And if not, I've got it there and I'll do it. Anyway, now it's coffee time. It's 3:30 sharp. And we are going to resume at 4 o'clock. Thank you.